Hello, welcome to the Health In Show, an affiliate program of Homeopathy World Community. You've come to the right place to tune in and participate with your comments and questions. Love is the greatest healer of all, but sometimes, in order to change our emotions, we must take action in other spheres of our lives. We speak with experts in alternative and complementary health fields and hope you will benefit in some small or great way. Remember, you are wherever your thoughts are. Make sure your thoughts are where you want to be.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Health In Show. We're so happy to have you join us today. Hope you're all doing well. We think about you all the time, and we just send our love to each and every one of you, no matter where you are. This is the Health In Show. We are part of the Homeopathy World Community. We join you each month with incredible stories and experts so that we help to educate and empower you in your health. And so before we get started, I want to say hi to Amnan.
Hello, Marilyn. Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Have a good
everybody.
show. Have a good show.
We will. So just reminding everyone, I'm going to just ask you all to please join us in our chat. You can put your name, nickname, whatever you like under the video and come in and ask questions there and comment. We'd love to have you be part of us, be part of our show. So I am the CEO of HWC, and I'm just delighted to have you. So let me introduce Kavitha to you. Hey, Kavitha.
Hi, Merlin. How are you?
I'm good. And you?
I'm good, thank you. And
Good.
I'm not.
Hello.
Okay. This is Kavita Kokunur, President and CEO of Homeopathy World Community. These health shows are for educational purpose and are dedicated to Debbie Burke, founder of HWC. I always thank Amnon for helping us with health insurance. We just celebrated World Homeopathy Day on April 10th, which was Dr. Samuel Hahnemann's birthday, founder of homeopathy. And this week, we are celebrating World Homeopathy Awareness Week, conducting activities related to homeopathy to provide awareness in public about natural therapies and alternative medicine. Today is April 14, 2020, and in this health show, our honorable guest speaker and world-renowned homeopather Dr. Divya Chhabra will speak about how homeopathy can help mentally, emotionally, and beyond. And at the end, she will focus on a little bit on COVID 19. In our past health shows, we have seen how our disease conditions and our emotions are interrelated, like suppressed anger, humiliation, and even feeling of jealousy, etc. Where homeopathic remedies like bryonia, staphysagria, laxative, and some snake remedies help those clients. I'm so fortunate to meet Dr. Divya personally at her clinic in Mumbai on January 22nd. Watched her live case. Her way of case taking, analysis, and arriving at remedy is very unique and mind blowing with amazing results. In-depth understanding of patient at neurons, the automatic brain, the conditional reflexes, and stored memory. No introduction is needed for Dr. Divya, but I will tell a little bit about her. Dr. Divya Chhabra graduated as a gold medalist from CMP Homeopathic Medical College, India. She began her practice in 1992. She did her MD from EKMM Homeopathic Medical College, India. Her love for medical practice is matched by her zeal for teaching. For past 26 years, she has been teaching homeopathy in India and around the world, like Boston, New York, Toronto, Moscow, to name few, Berlin, Australia, Finland, etc. She has conducted provings of several remedies. Her evolving methodology in the quest for perfection has one constant, the exploration of the unconscious as a control of disease patterns. The pinnacle of her work is the leap to the simillimum method which she practices today. We welcome Dr. Divya to our show. Thank you so much for coming on to our show, Divya.
Thank you very much, Kavita. Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you for having me here. Welcome, all of you. In today's trying times, the spotlight is once more on homeopathy. With COVID 19 taking over our economy, our social lives, our very thinking powers and thoughts. The question arises then, if immunocompromised people are attacked so lethally by this virus, do we have proof that homeopathy works on the immune system? I'd like to draw your attention to a review of this very important study. If I could have that slide. This is a study done by Mathur and Gupta. This slide shows you how they have reviewed two very, very key studies that proved that homeopathy works on the immune system. When we mean the immune system means our white blood cells, primarily the lymphocytes and the neutrophils. These lymphocytes produce the antibodies that will act against these viruses and bacteria and can kill them. Two very important studies. One involved a very common remedy, rust tox. While rust tox was given to sheep and mice, and in vitro and in vivo studies were carried out, it was clearly documented that giving rust tox in different homeopathic potencies showed a change in both the antibody production as well as in the delayed effect of the T lymphocytes. When Merck salt was ingested by some rats and then their abdomens were inspected post them being cut open, they found that the macrophage activity, you can see a macrophage activity by the large size, the spread activity, the phagocytosis, all this was clearly documented, as well as the effect on the cytokines, which today in this COVID epidemic are being talked about a lot. It clearly showed the effect on these cytokines. Therefore, this and many other studies clearly show us that homeopathy works on these immune cells. While modern medicine needs the specific antibiotic or the antiviral to attack that particular bacteria or virus, the advantage that homeopathy has is because it works on the immune cells of our own body, which has 10 raised to 11 receptors on the cell for different kind of viruses and bacteria. If these cells function the way they should, and they are empowered to do their work perfectly in the way they are programmed to, we can not only have a prophylaxis against the COVID, but we can cure these cases as well. The question again, when we talk about homeopathy, is so many scientists, researchers, young people ask the question. We dilute the homeopathic remedy to such a great extent beyond the Avogadro's number. Is there any medicinal substance left in it? Because of this dilution, there has been a lot of flack that homeopathy has faced, with people questioning that is this any more than a placebo because there is no medicinal substance in it. In fact, the very process of preparing the homeopathic remedy, which is diluting and then succussing the bottle many times to arrive at that potency, has often made homeopathy a laughing stock. There are very funny, interesting YouTube videos on homeopathy. One classic one is a homeopath goes to a bar and he's very depressed because his wife has left him. It doesn't happen only to homeopaths, let me assure you. But he goes to this bar and he's very sad and wants to drown his sorrows in a glass of whiskey. And the bartender puts one tiny drop of the alcohol in a whole glass of water, shakes that up and says, well, for you, the homeopath, this should work enough. Another theory that my son, when he was young, said is maybe one day Hahnemann walked to his patient's house and then gave a medicine and it didn't work. And maybe the second day he went on horseback, and then the medicine was shaken up and down. And that's how he arrived at this process of succussion. We've tried to find what is it that works when we dilute these medicinal substances, sometimes even toxic substances, to a non-toxic level to bring out their medicinal quantity. Very recently, IIT professor Dr. Jayesh Belare from IIT Mumbai and his PhD student Prashant Chikramane carried out a beautiful research, which has then been replicated and verified by other researchers as well. They observed very carefully the homeopathic medicine bought from pharmacies in different potencies. In a blind trial, they looked at these medicinal substances under the electron microscope, and they could see particular appearance of what is called in chemistry as nanoparticles. These nanoparticles are being used in all forms of medicine today because these nanoparticles are extremely potent with medicinal effects. They have the unique ability to cross the blood-brain barrier and cause a positive effect on a lot of the neuropeptides that can affect our body's health. He found that when he took a homeopathic remedy, which he didn't know the name of, and looked at the nanoparticle of that under the electron microscope, and then matched it to an existing chart that chemistry now has of the different shapes and appearances of nanoparticles, he correctly identified 6 different homeopathic remedies from different pharmacies without knowing which they were. This, without doubt, lays to rest the question, is there a substance within this homeopathic remedy? There are these nanoparticles. And the beauty of this is, this funny process of succussion that Hahnemann founded years ago, today is understood in chemistry as froth flotation, where when you beat a substance in a glass bottle, it breaks up into tiny nanoparticles which float to the surface. Then even when you take a 1 drop of that substance and put it in another diluted form, you are picking the concentrated form of these nanoparticles which are floating onto the top. Therefore, the use of the remedies in the potentized, diluted form to take away all side effects and negative effects of the remedy and tap their potent homeopathic effects is what makes homeopathy unique in today's time, because it thus acts on the immunity, because it acts in this way that is free of side effects. It is the recommended form of treatment. The Cuban government is unique in the sense that years ago, during a leptospirosis epidemic, they tested homeopathy as a prophylactic treatment in their country. The government gave out this medicine and did a double-blind trial. Without doubt, with clear results, they clearly showed the effect of homeopathy as a prophylaxis in this leptospirosis. This study was then questioned a few years later by another researcher who found some lacunae. After the correction of this lacunae, this researcher who had the questions still came to the conclusion that this study still holds exactly as true as it did before, that homeopathy worked as a prophylaxis in the case of leptospirosis epidemic in Cuba. Just yesterday, I received the further information that the Cuban government is now using homeopathic remedy officially to test it and to treat it and prophylaxis for their population against the COVID-19. Thus, I have no hesitation in recommending to all of you that if you have a homeopath, the best prophylaxis you can have is to go to your homeopath who has taken a detailed history of your individual immunity and can understand where your immunity needs further strengthening. Once you do that and take your constitutional remedy, you would be in a very good immune position in today's epidemic time.
Divya, let me just interrupt you 1 second,
Yes,
because I don't know if it was last week or the week before. I
yes.
was listening to the news and I heard them interject on CNN. Chris Como, who is one of their major journalists, interjected that he has COVID. He has COVID and he's been home sick, and he has been doing homeopathy.
Oh, that's interesting. I saw that video, but I didn't hear that about homeopathy. That's gorgeous. That's
Yes,
really
that is very, very important. And I'd
yes.
like to just say to everybody that's listening to please feel free, if you don't have a homeopath in your life, to please connect with us, because we can connect you to people that you can reach out to in all over the world. And Diva's here too, so she certainly is accessible. But remember that. I mean, we can connect you with people to give you information. So I just wanted to add that. But that was very interesting. I mean, his wife was
Yes,
giving it.
Madeline.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And can I add one thing?
Absolutely.
As Divya said, like homeoprophylaxis, which we just had in January, also international. So HPWWC and Free and Healthy Children International. So there are organizations which are there meant for the homeoprophylaxis, and especially in these conditions to help as a preventive for this epidemic or pandemic. We are helping.
If the question were to be asked that while we are working on individual remedies and individual immunity, is there a genus epidemicus, that is, that single remedy or a small group of remedies that is emerging in this particular epidemic? Let me clarify that though homeopathy is an individualized form of treatment, which means if we have 10 cases of malaria, we would give each of these patients a different remedy depending on where their immune system, which WBC of theirs needed tweaking, will decide which remedy that they need. The one exception happens in some severe epidemics, in some very potent epidemics that seem to take over the entire, in this case, world and the people and sweep them up into a common state of being. There are in situations like this what is called a genus epidemicus, a single remedy or a small group of remedies which can be chosen as a treatment as well as prophylaxis for people in contact. And perhaps as we do more studies, it may even be the prophylaxis that many of us will need as time goes on. This remedy group, if there are homeopaths, and there will be homeopaths in this audience, do email me on Dr. Divya Clinic at gmail.com. I repeat, Dr. Divya Clinic at gmail.com. And I will give you the information and the studies that me and some other homeopaths are doing.
Thank
Thus
you, Divya.
now, thank you. So if I were to now bring it back to how we would find the remedy whenever any individual patient or an individual person goes for prophylaxis or for treatment, what is that methodology, or what is it that we do that we give this individual remedy to build the immunity of the patient? So homeopathy from the time of Hahnemann has evolved considerably. He began it as a symptom similarity, symptoms that we see on the outside when noted, when given to a healthy person as what is called a proving, is what we match when we choose a remedy. But as medicine evolved, as the understanding of the human being evolved, as the understanding of what is disease evolved, we homeopaths have also moved and tried to look deeper as to what is this symptom group and in what way is it connected to the human being, his disease, and the particular pathology that he has. So it's something we've all observed that in a common situation of stress, there can be different people feeling stressed at that particular moment. Yet one person will have blood pressure, the other person may have acidity or an ulcer, and a third may develop an urticaria or an allergic response to something. So, what is it in each of us individuals that makes us respond differently to a same stressful situation? And how do we understand that homeopathy? For this, I'd like to take you back to an experiment that was done years ago and that still is extremely valid in today's times. This experiment, when I first say it, you may not remember it, but as I tell you a little more, you would have heard it in some field of life or the other. And that is the Russian scientist Pavlov's dog experiment. What Pavlov did is he took a dog and showed it food, and the dog started drooling saliva. This is a natural, innate reflex. Every living organism, when shown food or smells food, is going to salivate. We as human beings may not drool, though we sometimes may, depending on the item of food in front of us. But this form of salivation is basically the efficient inbuilt program of our body system. The digestive system starts its function the moment we see the food. The first level of enzyme in the mouth, the salivary enzyme, starts the moment the food is seen. This is alkaline. It triggers the next level of enzyme in the stomach, which is acid, along with the pepsin. This then triggers out peristalsis, that rumbling or good sound that we get in our abdomen. In other words, the digestive machinery does a dry run, extremely efficient, because now when you actually put the food in the mouth, every enzyme, every mechanism is already in place and the digestion proceeds flawlessly without any time lapse. Now, what Pavlov did, every time he showed the dog the plate of food, he rang a bell. He repeated this many times. After repeating this innumerable times, he then took away the food and only rang the bell. And the dog still salivated. Now, you might think, oh, now that's because the dog knows there's going to be food. He knows. But then he repeated this again and again and again without giving him the food. And despite this, every time the bell would ring, the dog would still salivate.
Conditional reflexes.
Conditional reflex. This we all learned, I think, even in school, in advertising, in economics, as conditioned reflex, right? Some reflexes are inborn, like we put our hand in hot water and we instantly pull it out. This is inborn. This one is a conditioned reflex. This conditioned reflex, however, shows an interesting aspect. It means our inbuilt body functioning programs are corruptible. Our digestive system, our heart, our immune system, our endocrine, it works mechanically, perfectly, with perfect timing and perfect levels, as if there is an inbuilt program for each of these mechanisms to function, much like a washing machine. right? Which its inbuilt program. But here, with Pavlov's reflex, it shows us that this inbuilt program that we are born with can be corrupted by the environment. So, for example, let's replace this dog with a baby, a human child. Let's say a child of about 5 months old, when we shift him from breastfeed to solid feed. Let us say coincidentally, this child lives in an extremely disciplined household, like an army household, where he is fed at 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. For many of us, time has been inculcated in our food circuit, so we get hungry at a particular time. But let's say that this child coincidentally lives just next to a school. The boundary wall of his house and that of a school are the same. And let's say coincidentally, this school bell rings at 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock for lunch, and 4 o'clock for going home. Now, what will happen is this bell gets included in this child's digestive circuit right from birth, much like Pavlov's dog. Okay,
Road reflex.
this is conditioned reflex. Now, this bell is in this child's digestive circuit. It's there. So what? What's it going to do? Let's say it does nothing for a great number of years, but let's say at the age of 40, he now gets a promotion and he moves from a small, far out village right into Grand Central Station, New York. And his job is that of a station master. And in that little village, somewhere in Milwaukee or somewhere in Jhumri Talaya, if you're from India, the trains would come 3 times a day. No problem. But Grand Central Station, New York, there is a train coming every 10 minutes, a train leaving every 10 minutes. And every time that train comes into the station, there is a bell, ting. And every time the train leaves, there is another bell, ting. Which means that now this corrupted digestive circuit in this person, which formed in his childhood, will suddenly get triggered. And every time he hears the bell, his digestive machinery will start, which means he will be hungry, which means he will stuff his face. As he will keep eating, he will become fat, obese, he will get diabetes, blood sugar, his cholesterol will go up, his blood pressure will go up, his diabetes will go up, or he will not eat because it's embarrassing to be eating at your job, right? You're supposed to be working, so he'll control himself and not eat. But every 10 minutes, the acid will form in his stomach. There will be no food there. This acid will erode the stomach mucosa, causing acidity, erosions, and ultimately an ulcer. When this patient, with either the blood pressure and diabetes or with the ulcer, goes to either his allopath or to his homeopath, they would ask him, have you been stressed? And he would say, yeah, I am stressed. I moved from this little town to New York. It's a, fast paced town, different lifestyle, very stressful, so much work. But really, it's not the stress alone that's triggered, but it is this particular stress that has triggered this dormant bell in his digestive circuit that will give him his particular kind of ailment. Whereas if there is this bell in somebody's circuit for heart or blood pressure, they will end up with a blood pressure, not with this group of symptoms. Right,
Divya,
Kavita?
can I interrupt you for a second? This is very,
Yes.
very interesting. And Marilyn, do you have any question? You or
Well,
Arnar or
honestly,
anyone?
yeah, you're such a great storyteller. You're fabulous. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I want to interrupt, but I don't want to interrupt.
Okay.
You do it. No, you're doing really well because you're the level of which you're discussing this and drawing this picture is so understandable. But I'm glad you said something, Kavitha, because I want to remind people on the chat.
Yes.
If you have any questions, to please feel free and put them there. I know you're engrossed just like I am, but I'm sure you have questions that you want to ask.
And they can call in, right, Marilyn?
I don't know, Amnon. Can they call in
Oh,
today?
I think no.
Absolutely.
Today, not today.
Wait. Hold on.
You-
What'd you
I
say?
mean, technically, yes.
Okay. So can they call in on Skype? No, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you can call in on computers, that's plural, then the number 2K voice, and you can join us in on our chat as well. So I don't have any specific questions, but other than bring something you said earlier, if it's okay, you talked about the DNA.
Right.
So so homeopathy works on your DNA. Is that what you're saying?
The DNA and the field of genetics for scientists today is actually passé. It's the last decade. This decade belongs to epigenetics because something that had always been observed is today finding an answer. That there can be two identical twins, which means they have exactly the same genetic makeup. And there have been documented cases where one twin showed juvenile diabetes, which is the diabetes the child gets, and the other, which is very genetic we understand that it's genetic in its transmission, but the other identical twin with the exact same gene makeup never showed the diabetes through their entire life. Forget juvenile diabetes, they didn't even show the other adult form of diabetes. Now, while most identical twins did show the same disease response, there were this small number of cases that got the researchers questioning this. Until in this decade, what they have found is that attached onto the gene is another molecule. This molecule is a neuropeptide. And this is the molecule that is the switch that puts on or off the gene. So you could have a particular gene, but it may not express itself unless it's switched on. And thus, homeopathy doesn't work on the gene, but it works on the neuropeptides. So if we know where the gene has got put on, what has triggered the switch on, we can, with the remedy, help the body itself to put the switch back off and go back to a healthy basic status.
Very interesting.
Yes, it is. It is. I just love what I do. Every day I wake up and it's just like there's something new and something interesting happening.
And Marilyn, everyone should watch or attend her conference. Means homeopath conference. They love it. It is so mesmerizing.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, it's because when you really listen to it and when you really understand, as you have presented, you can see the depth of what homeopathy, where homeopathy comes from, what it does, and how not just intriguing it is, but um, how much sense it makes.
Hmm. And if I were to now take this further into, now that we have understood that there is some bell that can get into the circuit, bell being symbolic to for anything else, right? Then what is it that we need to do? And how is it that we need to recognize this bell and treat it with homeopathy or through any other means of understanding what's happening? The problem here is that when these bells get included into our circuits, they are part of the brain that we do not have control over. So this entire system of the body, the mechanism of functioning, is controlled by what is called the PNEI axis. P meaning psycho or the mind, N meaning neuro or the brain and its cells, E is the endocrine, which is all the hormones, the estrogen, progesterone, thyroid, testosterone, etc. And I is the immune mechanism. This is the central backbone of our body's main control system, from which it controls all the different organ systems of our body. Now, when we look at this neuro or the brain, we normally understand brain as the thinking brain, the one that we are using right now, what you're using, I hope, to listen to me and focus on what I'm saying. This, our cognitive brain, is only 5% of our brain matter. This is a new brain. This brain is what we Homo sapiens have, what we are so proud of. It helps us think. It helps us plan into the future. It is what has taken us to Mars. It's amazing. But 95% of our brain matter is not this cognitive brain. It is this automatic brain, one that is pre-programmed and one that is not under our thought control. So I can think and decide to lift this pen, but I cannot think and say, okay, today for fun, I want my heart to beat at 53.2 per minute instead of 72 per minute. I cannot say for fun, because I'm going on a long trek and the toilets are terrible in India, I want to not pass urine. So kidneys do not produce urine for 24 hours. That's my ideal, by the way. That's what I'm working towards. But we cannot do that because our entire body function is through and controlled through 95% of our brain matter, which is automatic in its function. We cannot think and control it. And it is this automatic part of our brain wherein lies the key to this bell that gets into our pre-programmed circuit. And therein lies the problem. Because since it is in the part of the brain that we don't control, we are not aware of it. We can live our entire life without recognizing and knowing that there is this altered digestive circuit or bell that has been put in our circuit. It's extremely beneficial, actually, that we put our attention on our thinking brain. And we don't look at this automatic brain, we delegate it. We let it do its job by itself. Because we don't want to wake up every morning and say, breathe, 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 heart beat, 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 peristalsis, come on, start, start. Now kidney, come on, take in the sodium, take in the urine. We don't want to waste our time doing this. We want to do other things. So we have shifted our attention to this 5% unique brain matter that we, the Homo sapien, have, and let this 95% of the brain do its job automatically. But the problem is when there is a problem in that function, and now we want to look at that problem, and we don't know how to look at it. It's much like I'm a super driver. I drive the car beautifully. I can drive it in Mumbai streets and traffic. But if my car stops somewhere in the middle, I have no clue what the hell is under the bonnet and what to do about it. And that's what happens in our body function. We are putting our attention on thought, analysis, thinking, understanding, whereas the problem is completely in this automatic brain. How do we look and how do we shift our focus to this automatic brain? This 95% automatic brain is what is also called primitive brain. Primitive not in function, but in age. This brain was what the Neanderthal man, the Homo erectus, the primitive man in the jungle and the wild, put his entire attention to. There was not this 5% cognitive brain that evolved later, because I think the hard drive just got full up right here. So while this primitive Neanderthal Homo erectus man in the jungle paid full attention to this automatic part of the brain, he needed to do it because his survival depended on it. In the jungle, You don't fall sick. You either live or you die. Either the tiger gets you or the forest fire gets you or you survive. So the entire automatic part of the brain had two main functions. One, to control the body functions and let them work flawlessly. And the second is the survival, which means that if the primitive man, far in the distance, among the beautiful green and the blues and the grasses and the light filtering through, saw a little square piece of yellow with black stripes, he would run. This is a tiger. My life depends on it. He will not stop to think, could this be a tiger? Could this be a cloth? Could this be an optical illusion? This kind of time waste thinking is what the thinking brain does. The automatic brain doesn't have this time in the while to do it. It must run, because if this was the tiger and you stop to think, you will be dead. And thus, this automatic brain was used by the primitive man to take in all the input from the periphery of the five senses: the visual, the smell, the sound, the sound in the grass, it's a snake. Smell, forest fire coming in this direction, change direction instantly. Your hand goes in hot water, pull it out instantly. So the five senses are constantly giving their input into this automatic part of the brain.
Divya, can I interrupt you for a second? This is very, very interesting. And I think you have slides, right, Divya, to show the pattern?
No, that's a little later. That will come with the case. Yes. I
Yeah,
just
please
thought
go. We would like to have more of your slides too. With the
I,
case.
I have, I think I'm a narcissist. I want them to see me more than they see the
Okay,
slides.
please go ahead with case studies. We love it.
So, so this automatic brain focuses on the five senses and takes these five senses are but parts of our brains. They are neurons, modified neurons, and they go straight giving their information into this automatic brain. All we need to do to get to this part and figure where the bell is into which circuit is shift our attention from thinking and from the central focus to the attention to the five senses in the periphery. Which means if you stopped for a minute, stop listening to me, and just put your attention in the periphery and see what you see all around me: the orange light, the black, the AC gap, the cupboard little sliver out there. What can you hear around? What are you smelling? As you put your entire attention, you are stimulating the neurons of the eyes, nose, ears, and you are stimulating this entire automatic brain. Once we have done that, we now need to find where this corrupted circuit and the bell is, right? Now, these circuits, while can form or can get corrupted at any point in life, the time when there is maximum new circuits forming is childhood. Because apart from things that we already are programmed, we are learning language, walking, talking, swallowing, swimming, cycling. We are learning all this and then making it into an automatic program.
Divya,
And
I just need to interrupt you just so I keep you,
yeah,
so just so you know, we have time, but we're almost at 11:15.
I'm watching it very
Okay, good, good, because we don't want to miss anything.
no.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm
yeah. Okay,
just watching the time because that's my biggest problem, right?
okay.
That gets
Well, ours
so
too when we're listening to you.
right, right. So as we watch what's happening into our five senses and this automatic brain in childhood, as I said, these circuits are forming rapidly. New circuits are forming, and hence the chance of a circuit getting corrupted is much more in childhood than it is in older age when we are just repeating stuff that we already do and we know. And thus, if we need to figure where the circuit and the bell is, not only do we need to go to this automatic brain through the five senses, but we need to go to childhood memories. And now that's the beauty. Memory is also stored in two ways. Cognitive brain stores word documents, points, important gist, summary, and events, whereas this 95% of the brain takes in all the unfiltered data, whatever is seen, smelt, tasted, heard, touched. Therefore, it makes an entire 5D movie. It has been proved through awake surgeries. Awake surgeries are great fun because when they operate on patients' brains, they need to make sure that when they get into the brain, they don't damage any vital part of the brain. It's like, okay, I've taken out the tumor, but now you can't speak or smell or walk. I mean, what the hell? There is one beautiful case on YouTube. You can all get it. There is this violinist, very famous violinist, who used to play for an orchestra, and she was getting operated. And she said, I don't care if this tumor kills me, but if you operate and I cannot play the violin to the level that I can, I don't want to live. Hence, there's a beautiful video where they show her being operated in King's Hospital, I think, where she's playing the violin through the entire surgery while the surgeons are operating on her tumor. By the way, this is also possible because there are no pain receptors inside the brain. Once you go beyond the skin, there's no pain there. So, in these alert surgeries, when accidentally parts of the brain were gently touched, what emerged is that they were able to stimulate by chance memories of the person's childhood. And patients would begin to say, I'm 5 years old, 12 years old, here's my school, here's the swing, here I fell down, here's this, here's that, as if they were seeing and experiencing that moment like it's happening now. This clearly tells us that once we take the five senses and go into this automatic brain, flashbacks of your childhood visual experiences begin to emerge. It is these visual flashbacks that we ask the patient to convey to us as a visual, from which we find out where is this bell that has got into which circuit. The example of a case I'd like to give you is of a young boy who came with severe wheezing. He had been diagnosed as asthmatic and, or let's say, hyperreactive airway disease. And he was using inhalers, occasionally steroid oral tablets. When he came to me, he had already been on the pump and tablets for the last 1 month, and he was still wheezing. When I took his history, he is a young boy, 8 years, about 10 years old, and he said, I get aggravated. My asthma gets worse every day at in my short recess. The snack time is when my asthma gets worse. 3:45 to 4:15. I thought that's interesting. So of course I asked him, what do you eat? What do you do? Do you play out in the sand? You know, what's happening that could be triggering it? Smoke, dust, food. No, he's sitting in the classroom. Same classroom that he's sitting in for his lectures. But snack time, his wheezing goes up. So I ask him, what are you seeing around you? So he says, and can I have the next slide, please now? And he says, I'm seeing the desk. No, the next one, that's perfect. I'm seeing the desk. I'm seeing the chair. I'm seeing a purple and blue poster that's put on the wall. And then he says he's seeing a shelf with red dots. And then he sees food because the kids have eaten their food and they've dropped it, and there are wrappers and food and ants. This is the visual that he gave me. As I asked him to expand on his school and the visual, it was clear that he was already seeing another flashback, because he said, and then in my school, there is this big fence. And then he said, actually, there's no fence in my school. So he was already seeing another overlapping picture. So I asked him, okay, take away this picture. Where is this fence that you're seeing? And he says, oh, this fence is on a school trip. where we went to an animal zoo. Can I have the next slide, please? And then he says this was a dirty bus. The bus was very dirty. And then we went, and the first thing we did is we had breakfast. We had rice pancakes. And the place was, there was food all over. There were big fans, and there were bugs. There were flies, there were mosquito, and all kinds of bugs that were there. Already, you begin to see a pattern. There is food fallen, there are bugs. Some pattern is there which is triggering his episodes in different scenarios. As I asked him to describe further this garden, he was telling me about the animals and the lions, and he said there's a pond with ducks in it. And then he said, wait a minute, the pond with ducks isn't here. That was in my home when I lived in Europe. He had now moved to India. And I said, okay, go back to your childhood home in Europe then. And what are you seeing there? And he says, oh, this was this huge house with the big garden, pine trees, the pond with the ducks, grass. And then as soon as you entered, there was this long dining table. And he said, and I remember that we always had a problem in that house. As soon as we ate our food, we had to clean up. Because if there was any leftover crumbs left, the next morning it would be full of ants. So, what do you see? That right from the beginning, in his childhood circuit, there was ant with leftover food that was constantly there in his background that created a certain level of stress. You had to clean it, or there were ants. You had to clean it. This, when he comes to this school, gets triggered at 3:45 to 4:15 only, because that's the time there is on that floor the food dropped in the recess with the wrappers and the ants. And the one other time he was triggered very badly was on this school trip, when he had to be admitted to the hospital with wheezing, and he had to be nebulized after this trip. And on this trip as well was the leftover food in the background and the bugs all around the place. Are you with me?
Yes.
Just in this particular case, the bell that was in his circuit was this ant that repeated as ants or other bugs in his life ahead. And the remedy, therefore, when we choose homeopathically, is the remedy of that object or of that bell, in this case, the ant. And the remedy we have from that is Formica rufa, which has very interesting chemicals like formic acid, some anticoagulant factors, some histamine producing substances. And that remedy was given to this patient who had been on the inhalers for 1 month. He was given Formica rufa 30 in what we give as deviated doses in homeopathy to ultra dilute them every day a little more. Within 1 week, when we examined his chest, he had no wheeze and it was completely cured. Of course, this is a chronic case. He's had this problem for a while. So we are continuing to treat him, and we are going to watch and wait before we say this is a completely cured case, because that's cured when he hasn't had any wheeze at least for a year while on the treatment, as well as another few months of the treatment.
This is wonderful case, Divya. Can I interrupt you for a second? Just we have Deepak, our executive director of HWs. He is on the he's with us, and we would like to take any questions from Marilyn or from the chat or anyone else, please.
Hello, Divya.
Hi, Deepak. Pleasure.
It is really wonderful to nice hearing about the mind from you. This is really a nice lecture, and I think you should continue with your expressions. That is the most wonderful. This is really wonderful. Uh, Please continue your session. If we have any question in the chat, we will ask.
Right. The shift, therefore, in the field of psychology and medicine as well as homeopathy has gone from just what was purely the mind or the unconscious mind of Freud and Jung, to the automatic brain and the actual factual neuronal action that today can be observed both by functional MRI and EEG. There is another paper, by the way, a research paper of somebody who studied the effect of homeopathy when the doses are given to the EEG of a patient with very interesting results. Thus, homeopathy not only is working on your immune cells, but it is working on your immune cells completely from this TNEI axis, from this neuropeptides that control your genes, that control your endocrine, that control your immunity, and control the rest of your body functions. If there are any questions now from the entire audience, chats, I'm really happy to take them.
I think what's so interesting, and every time I hear this, it gets even more and more interesting, is how important the stories are in homeopathy. I mean, this and listening.
Absolutely.
It is
The-
so important. Go ahead.
Right. There is the difference, though, is what I would like to bring here is that for years, the stories I listened to were the stories of thoughts and emotions, right? So, for example, if you have somebody who has been tortured, say with a gun or a knife, right? We understand that years later or months later, if you were to walk in suddenly and somebody has a toy gun in the hand, it would bring out that same entire panic, fear, aggression, adrenaline response in you, because the memory of that gun will bring back all the memories of those bad events that happened. What is very interesting, though, is that this we know. We know, and he knows why the gun is bothering. But let us say he was being tortured in a room. And in that room, on the side was a dustbin with some crumpled paper lying on the side of the dustbin. This is in the periphery. The cognitive brain doesn't remember it. It doesn't consider it important at all. It's insignificant. But months later, this guy can walk out on the street and he'll see a dustbin with the crumpled paper on the ground, and it will trigger the same fear, fight, flight, adrenaline response in him. The problem will be he will not know why, because he doesn't remember why and what is triggering him. He's going to look around for guns and not find any. This is the important shift that we need to make, both when we are dealing with emotional issues as well as when we are looking at it from a homeopathic angle. That shift the focus from purely the emotion to what's happening in the periphery. Because the emotion, you can gradually understand and control. It is the periphery which you are not seeing, which you don't remember, will continue to trigger your emotional patterns of behavior and physical circuit problems, and we will not know what is happening. And that's my message, and what I want to bring to people both in homeopathy and the world, that put your attention not only on the thought and emotion, but understand this automatic brain. And you can then, through homeopathy, or even just through your own observations, understand what circuits are formed with what insignificant crumpled papers, and be able to take care of them with and without homeopathy.
Dr.
Divya,
Divya?
this is amazing.
Wait,
I'm done.
wait a second. There are a couple of questions, and I guess nobody else is watching the chat.
Well, I'm watching, but they must have just come. Go ahead.
Dr. Divya,
Yes.
Dr. Pritesh Pate
Yes.
says, ma'am, how did you make him recollect and remember all these past experiences? Was it past life regression hypnosis?
That's a very good question. As I've told you, these memories are stored in our automatic brain. The triggers to these memories are our five senses. You would all have had this experience that at some point in your life, somebody mentions a name, or you smell something, or you see some item of food, and it suddenly triggers for you. Oh, when I was 10 years old, I went to this house and it had this roof, and behind that, there was this dog, and this staircase, and this table, and there was that food. We all have this experience of going, oh, which is always triggered with a visual, a smell, a taste, or a sound, the five senses. Therefore, when we put our attention on the case taking right from the beginning, on the five senses, and we stimulate the five senses, it stimulates all the neurons of the automatic brain. In this automatic brain is stored nothing but flashbacks of our life. And therefore, as we focus on these senses, these flashbacks begin to appear automatically. All we need to do is put our attention on the visual flashback and convey it out to the person.
Okay, there's. Oh, are you done?
Yes, and there, one
Oh,
more
okay.
question. Yes.
There's another question here from Pooja. It says, can Parkinson's be cured with homeopathy?
This is a very good question. Theoretically, Parkinson's is and should be cured with homeopathy. It is a factor of something within the brain. It is dopamine, one of the neurotransmitters that has become low, something that's got changed in that circuit. However, in practical experience, we've had some good results with homeopathy, but not as many as I would like. And we are still examining and working on to see what is it that we are missing in these cases of Parkinson's. However, there is strong studies of neuroplasticity, which is the same thing I was talking about, that if we exercise repeatedly and relearn our activities of walking or getting up and turning, those that slow down in Parkinson's patients, you can completely reverse the effect of Parkinson's by reforming new brain circuits. So, yes, the formation of new brain circuits in Parkinson's is possible. Theoretically, it is possible with homeopathy. We have some good results. We need more work and we need to find better results with this.
All right. The next one. Any remedies for excessive cough in this epidemic atmosphere?
So, if the patient is COVID positive, then a particular group of remedies is working specifically. Cymex, Hirudo are two such remedies. But if this is a non COVID positive cough, which you can recognize because it is a cough with phlegm, usually, if you also have nasal discharge, if there is no fever associated with it, then you would need your constitutional remedy for this cough. So I advise you to go to your homeopath or get a homeopath near you, which HWC can very easily help you access.
All
Amnon,
right.
can you just read the last question? Because that's all we'll probably have time for.
Okay. The last question here is, can you explain the process of extracting these triggers in more detail with another example?
I would love to do that and go on and on, but
Yeah.
time is short. And what I would recommend is that there are short lectures of mine on my YouTube channel, and if you can just show on that last slide to them. So if you would go on to the YouTube channel, there are lectures that you can watch where you will understand the methodology and the cases more in detail. I will have some more webinars, both with HWC and other webinars, and the Facebook page and my website will give you more information about it. I will thus be able to give you more cases because I've already been warned that if I run too ahead of time, I'm going to be.
We'll take this slide and I'll make sure that it's posted on our Facebook group as well.
Absolutely.
Because that's a really good slide to share. So we'll make sure that in fact, actually, you can put the whole PowerPoint because it's not that big.
Absolutely.
We'll make sure we do that because this has been fascinating. Thank you very much.
And Divya, would you like to say your new book and the upcoming events just in 1 minute?
Well, I wrote my book, and as soon as I finished my book, I made another step advance in what I was doing in homeopathy. And so now I'm left with this book, and I have to write another one, and I want to go ahead and do this. So I will be doing more webinars. I will bring that book out. But at the moment, I'm also working with studies in COVID positive cases because I feel this is a unique opportunity for homeopathy and this world. If the world, the evidence-based medicine can recognize and see the effects of homeopathy on this epidemic, the virus and the immunity, this could be a great opportunity for open-minded allopaths and homeopaths to walk together, to do more research, and to bring good health to everybody on this planet.
Right. Hooray.
Thank you so much, Divya. And Marilyn, you want to say anything?
I appreciate you coming here, and I will like to invite you back and do webinars. And I think, it'd be really great to do just some kind of a Q&A, some kind of a small description of what you did in the future, and invite the public to come in and just do a Q&A, do some kind of a thing like that, because you really are such a wonderful storyteller, and you make it so fascinating and interesting and understandable at the same time. So I really, really thank you so much for that. Really, and
I'm open to do that anytime you ask me. My pleasure, Marilyn, Kavita, Deepak, Aaron. Thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you to Nissan Communications.
Amnon, do you have a minute, Marilyn, for our upcoming events?
You can go ahead. You don't even have to ask.
Thank you so much, Amnon, always. And thank you so much once again, Divya, and all the ones who have tuned. I'm sorry, I'm not checking the chat, but thank you for being here. And our website HWC is up and running. Please register. And we are active on the Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram. So do not forget to become a member of HWC. And our upcoming events we have on April 25th noon Eastern. It is a webinar, Homeopathy for Skin Diseases, and it is by Dr. Pawan Parik. And on May 5th at 10 a.m. Eastern, we have Health Show with Roger Morrison and Nancy Herrick on topic Homeopathy for Psychological Conditions. And on May 23rd noon Eastern, it's a webinar, Simplicity in Homeopathy by Dr. Ghansham Kalatiam. And we have Joint American Homeopathic Conference, which will be a virtual one. So please visit www.jht2020.org for more updates and registration. And I will be speaking on ENT diseases and sharing HWC expert cases. So thank you all again. And any last word, Marilyn?
Yes, I do actually. There is one little comment on the stream, and I just want to address it because it is very important. Yes, you can see this again. This will be we will have the video. It'll be a replay. You can find it on our YouTube channel. I think it's really important for everybody out there to take a look at this again, because this really does put things into perspective. So we will have it available in the next few days on the Homeopathy World Community YouTube channel.
And also, if I may add, if there are more questions, if they email you the questions or email them to me on drdivyaclinic@gmail.com, I will make sure we answer every question to the best of our ability.
Perfect.
Thank you. We will share.
Thank you, Deepak, for being here. Kavitha.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Everyone.
And Deepak and everyone.
We'll see you soon, right?
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.